I'm Krishnakumar. First up, a check on all our headlines. After a brief pause last week, India's stock markets resumed their downward trend with major indices hitting a 4-month low. Sensex plummeting over 900 points while the Nifty closes below the 24,000 mark as uncertainty surrounding the highly contested US presidential elections weigh heavily on investor sentiment. Volatility spiking. 25 listing for its telecom giant Jio, which analysts estimate to be worth over $100 billion, with plans to delay the IPO of its retail business until a later date, according to sources cited by Reuters. India's banking sector experiences a notable shift in business dynamics, with deposit growth now outpacing credit growth. A first since the 8th of April 2022. Deposits have consistently grown faster than credit, showing a 6.5% increase from last year, while overall credit growth trails at 4.9%. Money supply growth has reached above 11%, marking the highest rate in 12 fortnights, while credit growth at 11.5% is at its lowest in 62 fortnights. This trend shift may influence future lending and financial strategies in the sector. The Indian Railways is set to launch a super app by the end of December, aiming to be a comprehensive solution for all passenger services developed by the Centre for Railway Information Systems. The app is set to integrate with the Indian Railway Catering and Tourism Corporation, or IRCTC, to streamline services. It will allow users to book passenger and platform tickets, check train status and more. Currently, Indian Railways passengers rely on multiple apps for services, and this new app will consolidate all of them, from IRCTC Rail Connect to e-catering, food on track, Rail Madad, UTS and National Train Inquiry System. Online food delivery and quick commerce platform Swiggy fined by a court in Hyderabad for adding a delivery fee. Despite the customer's membership benefits, the District Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission in Hyderabad's Ranga Reddy has ruled against Swiggy for unfair trade practices.
Are we ready to vote? Are we ready to win?
This one is a total stiff. You can't have her as your president.
The consequences of him ever being president again are brutally serious. Brutally serious.
You're a vice president. We will make America great again. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
We are not going back. We're not going back.
Who is going to win the US presidential elections, and who is better for India if they win? Let's find out. The United States of America is set to go to polls on the 5th of November, and all eyes are on how the results will turn out, because it will have a ripple effect across global economies, especially here in India. Historically, the US president's stance on trade, defense and foreign policy has had a significant influence on India's economic landscape, the tech sector to be specific, and overall geopolitical stance. A pro-India administration could mean stronger collaborations in technology, defense and education, while a shift in US trade policies could impact Indian exports and investments. Beyond economics, India's role in countering regional challenges in Asia could be shaped by who takes charge in Washington. As the presidential race between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump intensifies, it will be interesting to see how the election results will turn out and how they will impact India. On this show, we're trying to understand which result will be better for India? And to do that, we have a couple of special guests joining us. We have Mr. Srinath Sridharan, policy researcher, and we also have Mitali Nikore, founder and chief economist of Nikore Associates, joining us. Thank you, Mitali. Thank you, Srinath, for being with us. Srinath, let me begin with you. Straightforward question. Is it, Kamala or is it Trump? Who should India want to win?
Yeah, I think if you look at the markets, the stock markets, they seem to be voting for clearly Trump coming back. While some of the sectors will clearly find it difficult, there could be, let's say, margin pressures on ITS companies. Pharma would benefit, defense stocks would benefit. And again, Trump might look at India as probably an acceptable alternate to the Chinese manufacturing sector. Of course, how we will deliver, if at all we will deliver, is a larger question mark. But India would also need probably support on the immigration, the visa regime, which Trump could be far, far difficult and tough. But let's not forget the bromance that we have seen between two heads of state, our Prime Minister and Trump in the past. If you remember the entire Howdy Modi that happened, Trump personally attended that. And when he came to India, he was hosted in Ahmedabad in the cricket. So there are a lot of those personal equations that go. I don't think that's the same equation that India would probably have it with Kamala. I would see it as it might be status quoism if Kamala Harris wins and comes back. But really, I think markets are saying that you need somebody who will push the trade envelope for India, and that could be Trump very clearly.
Okay. Mitali, your opening statements, who do you think at the face of it all is going to be good for India as the president of the US?
So I think, one very interesting statement that came from former President Trump was about Bangladesh. And in fact, just last week, he's made a statement about how Hindus in Bangladesh are getting persecuted and that this is something that he wants to take seriously. Also, sort of signaling that it's, he is looking for the Hindu vote in the US. And we have also seen a massive gender divide coming up amongst even the Indian American community in the US, where a lot of Indian American women, particularly in upper age groups, are backing Kamala Harris, whereas men are backing Trump. And I think that, this kind of a gender divide playing out in many of the communities, but particularly in the Indian community in the US. Now, when we look at, the Biden era and the Trump era in terms of actual trade that has been taken place between India and the US, there's not much of a discernible difference. In fact, trade has only grown during the Biden era. We haven't seen any sort of backlash against, trade with India, particularly in the software services segment. And there has not been any sort of reduction in the, in the visas that are being issued. So I personally don't find that, with the Democratic particular, dispensation, there should be any rollback in the kind of relationship that has developed between India and the US. I think the India-US relationship is only set to grow, particularly given, the importance of the Quad and particularly given the importance of how India is helping the US navigate a lot of the relationships within South Asia and Asia in general.
All right. Srinath, my point here is this: both of them seem to be hell-bent on improving domestic competitiveness in the US economy. That means that, further barriers to trade, neither of them seem like they're going to take it easy on tariffs. Trump wants blanket tariffs. Kamala Harris too wants to look at, the tariff regime so that, American businesses can grow, neither of which is essentially great for India.
Yeah, that's true. Probably more on the Trump side, Krishna. If you look at it, he's very firm on America first. He's very firm on bringing manufacturing back to the US. And he's also firm very clearly, if you remember that they've not signed the overall, and he may not actually live with the promises of respecting the international treaty on services. So which means that he's going to probably look at any allies that would allow him to continue doing what he is. He's also promised tax cuts, which means he has to really make a lot more money. And let's not forget that $34 trillion is the US debt at this point in time. So what will he do? I think somewhere they're swinging towards him in terms of his economic and trade kind of decisions are sounding very protectionist. But name a country now, Krishna, which is not saying so. India is also saying the same thing, right? And I think that is where that I feel that somewhere there is a larger connect. But one, I think, very important point that we must keep in mind, who is going to be beneficial for India in, let's say, this entire Canadian nuisance that we've been seeing play out in the last couple of months? Which way will the US swing? Because if you notice, US has not come out very clearly saying, are they supporting India or are they supporting Canada? It seems like they're kind of wanting to play up and use whoever skeletons in the bag.
Okay. Mitali, same question to you. We are sitting here wondering who is going to be better, but both of them, need to strike a strong, American note this time around if they want to win elections. And the moment they win and come, their expectations from America and Americans will be so high that, tariffs will be inevitable.
So I think, Krishna, a growing American economy is good for India. Because India exports a large amount of merchandise goods as well as services to the US. So a strong American economy is very much in the interest of India. So whichever, party and whichever administration can steer America in the direction of having a stable economy, despite the, American involvement in various skirmishes and disturbances around the world, is good for India because India needs to export, particularly IT software services as well as financial services, and India is literally one of the back offices servicing the US economy in many ways. I mean, a lot of the outsourcing work that India is getting is coming from American companies, a number of American companies coming and investing in India as a second base, so to speak. Apart from the US, India is one of the largest areas where American software companies, finance companies are coming and investing, setting up offices for the long term. So, the corporate sector growth in India is also very highly dependent on the US and the US growing. So a growing US is good for us. Now, if we look at the record of the Biden administration in the last 4 years, Biden administration has actually brought US to a point of low joblessness, low unemployment rates, a stable inflation rate, and growing, growth sort of being seen in the manufacturing sector as well as the services sector, which is then serviced by economies like India. So overall, the Biden administration has actually steered the US into a much better economic trajectory than, where it was left during the previous regime.
All right, Mitali, stay with us. Srinath, stay with us. We are taking a very short breather here at the stage. We'll be back with lots more on the other side. Keep it with News 9 Live.
The most admired cricket icon and former Team India head coach Rahul Dravid is in the headlines these days. But from the cricket ground, he's now been spotted facing the camera. What is the special thing that Mr. Dependable is now working on? Is Dravid working on his biopic? Or is it a new book or autobiography that he's planning? Is it an ad film or a new tournament that he's preparing for? What could be his next adventure? We are trying to find out. What's your guess?
Why is the state not looking at putting an embargo on that?
As a Telangana person, I will not accept.
How do ordinary folks deal with this?
This is News 9 Live, India's only digital exclusive live stream. For the early adopters, bringing you the news 24/7. For the smart audiences on the smartest TVs. News 9 Live. Stream now on your smart TVs.
Indian Americans are redefining success in every field. However, Indian Americans haven't historically been a political force in US elections. But the 2024 race could mark a turning point for one of the fastest growing immigrant groups in the country. Ever since Kamala Harris, the daughter of an Indian mother, unexpectedly rose to become the 2024 Democratic nominee, Indian American communities say they've seen a groundswell of support and energy for this election. Elections are won on the margin, and Indian Americans can be that margin of victory. This is the Indian American vote.
Are we ready to vote? Are we ready to win? Yes.
This one is a total stiff. You can't have her as your president.
The consequences of him ever being president again are brutally serious. Brutally serious.
You're a vice president. We will make America great again. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
We are not going back. We're not going back.
Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris, who is going to be and who is going to be good for India? That's what we're asking here on this edition of In Your Interest. Srinath Sridharan continues to be the Srinath. The other big issue, apart from trade and economics, is the fact that visas are a big deal for Indians. Be it H-1B visas or student visas. Talk to us from that perspective. Again, both of them, have their own stances on immigration. But who do you think is going to be better as far as Indians and their visas are concerned?
If it's visas, clearly Kamala Harris seems to be far better, not a hardliner at all. I think we'll see continued regime, which means don't expect the American tourist visa window to open up before 1 year. As we're seeing 14 to 18 months, depending on whichever Indian city. But I think we're going to see, if Trump were to come in, I think he's going to stiffen the rules and regulations around ITES, student visas. And very clearly, for him to make America great again, it means you have to pay a price to get in. And I also worry slightly that the IT sector's margins to continue doing business in the US will kind of shrink, which means you got to do more business to make more money or the same money. Obviously, the business potential seems far higher if they're going to pull back supply chain, the global supply chain back to the US. And I think that is where the opportunity is. But yet, there is also a worrying factor that unless our ITES Indian segment kind of upgrades its skill sets and does cutting edge work, I think we will, the days of labor arbitrage could be kind of challenged with tougher pricing.
Mitali, the one big item in the minds of many Indians tracking the US elections is visas. They have not been easy. Things have been difficult across visa categories. But talk to us from your perspective. Who do you think will be better?
So I do think I completely agree with Srinath, that at the end of the day, the current status quo has brought in stability. One particular category which I feel is very, very important for the US economy and the Indian economy is student visas. Because even today we see the largest number of students who are going abroad, they are preferring to go to the US because they feel like the employment prospects in the US post-study are actually still amongst the most buoyant when we look at, different options. And I'm seeing it with my own students, who are going abroad. They are all landing jobs when they're going to the US, but the UK, Australia, Canada, they are struggling. And Canada, we don't even know what's going to happen, with the current situation in place, whether our students will get jobs. So I think, the US economy holding a lot of promise there for young Indians and for, student visa holders, which I think is a very important category for us. And even the students who come back after studying there are an asset to our economy. And it's important to get that US education for many young Indians. So I think that's one aspect. The other aspect, as Srinath said, of course, IT sector, but I also feel like entrepreneurship is another category. A lot of young entrepreneurs going to the US, in the AI space, in the tech space, in the startup space, and trying to run their businesses in India as well as the US, servicing the Indian market and the US market. And that category of people is only growing, and they're, bringing a lot of revenue, tax revenue to both the Indian markets and the US market. And I think more and more collaboration needs to be encouraged in the tech space for the Indian IT sector to remain competitive. So I think that's an area where I think the current administration, again, bringing in a lot more stability in that space.
Okay. Srinath, talk to us in terms of, the way forward, because you're looking at companies, American companies, giants from, technology to other sectors who want to increase their presence in India, their manufacturing base in India, or to, tap into the Indian market more. Apple being a classic example. There are many, many more like Apple, and for all of them, waiting in line, to find an alternative to China, if not, completely write China out of the picture, to find a good, solid alternative to hedge their bets in Asia. India is the destination, and from that perspective, who is going to be better?
So I think from that perspective, Trump, very clearly. I'm voting on Trump. If we want pro-India stance, good for trade, good for commerce, with some give and takes. Obviously, nothing is going to be without give and take. And as long as it's a give and take, let's say on the commerce side, not the strategic front in terms of our ideology, I think Trump would be a far better way. I think if I were to look at it and dispassionately say he's a businessman, he understands business. So which means don't kill the golden goose, let it go. So I would vote for Trump.
Okay. Mitali, one quick comment from you from that perspective.
I actually personally feel that, the kind of investments we've seen in the last 3 years, particularly coming in, the Apple investment came in the last 3 years. So I see no reason why the Biden administration or the Harris administration that way would actually stop any business from taking independent decisions if they want to. But yes, having said that, we saw even with Rishi Sunak, there was a lot of hope that, when you have an Indian origin head of state, maybe, the relationship will be warmer, will be closer. And we didn't see that panning out with Rishi Sunak and Modi. And I feel like that's the same thing that's going to happen with Harris and Modi. We don't necessarily, it's not necessary that we'll see a warmer relationship. But I also don't see any reason why Harris would interfere, in any of the business decisions.
Okay. We will leave it at that. We're completely out of time over here. Mitali Nikore, founder and chief economist, Nikore Associates, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us. Of course, Srinath Sridharan, policy researcher and corporate advisor, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on In Your Interest. And with that, it's a wrap here from my side. Thank you so much for watching. This is Krishnakumar signing off.
Hello. If your money is fraudulently taken by somebody or a cyber scam takes place with you,
क्या हम कृष्णा दास गुप्ता जी से बात कर रहे हैं?
And you report it to the bank within 3 days of the crime, the bank is liable to pay you 100%. This is clear-cut guidelines.
मैं डिपार्टमेंट से बात कर रहा हूँ.
If you report it within 7 days, the bank is liable to pay you 50%. And if you report it in 21 days, I think 25% or something.
और हमने ये देखा है कि आपके आधार कार्ड से एक सिम रजिस्टर्ड हुआ है यहाँ.
If the person gives information within the span of 3 to 4 hours, 100% recovery can be done. I personally have seen a lot of cases where 100% recovery has been done.
आपका सिम यूज हुआ है, इलीगल एक्टिविटीज हुई हैं उस सिम से. Oh my God, मैडम, you are also involved in the Naresh Goyal money laundering case.
Politicians as young as 24-year-old Ashwin Ramaswamy, running for a Georgia Senate seat, are stepping into the spotlight, joining a robust community of ambitious Indian Americans. Indian Americans are redefining success in every field, from tech icons like Sundar Pichai and Satya Nadella to creative talents like Carl Penn, Maitreyi Ramakrishnan, and Hasan Minhaj. However, Indian Americans haven't historically been a political force in US elections. But the 2024 race could mark a turning point for one of the fastest growing immigrant groups in the country. Ever since Kamala Harris, the daughter of a Jamaican father and an Indian mother,